Hannah Bardell.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker, and I want to wish you and your team a very happy New Year and all the best for 2018. Mr Speaker, to ask the Secretary of State for Digital, Culture, Media and Sport if he will make a statement on the accusations of unfair pay at the British Broadcasting Corporation following the resignation of China editor Carrie Gracie.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. Like most members of this House, I strongly support the BBC, and like most of the licence fee payers who fund it, I would go so far as to say that I love it. And now, in this digital age, perhaps more than ever, if the BBC didn't exist, we would need to invent it. But as a treasured national institution, the BBC must not only uphold, but be a beacon for the British values of fairness that this nation holds dear. That includes fair pay and an equal pay for equal jobs. By introducing reforms in the BBC Charter, this government, under the leadership of my two predecessors, has vastly improved BBC transparency and shone a light on gender and pay issues at the BBC. And this new transparency includes requiring the BBC annually to publish the salary details of all BBC staff paid more than £150,000. Publishing these details for the first time in July resulted in much-needed public scrutiny of pay at the BBC. The BBC's overall gender pay gap stands at around 9%. But the figures also show two-thirds of those earning over £150,000 were men, and reveal a lack of staff from BAME backgrounds among top earners. At the time of publication, some male presenters were understandably uncomfortable with the results. John Humphreys even acknowledged that he would not necessarily be able to explain his salary of £600,000. And this isn't just a matter of levelling women's pay up, it's a matter of pay equality. Working for the BBC is public service and a great privilege, yet some men at the BBC are paid far more than other equivalent public servants. Now, the BBC have begun to act, and I welcome that, but more action, much more action, is needed, especially when BBC foreign editors can earn more than Her Majesty's ambassadors in the same jurisdiction. In the specific case of Carrie Gracie, I welcome the EHRC's decision to look into the issue she's raised. The EHRC is the regulatory body responsible for policing equal pay, and it's for them, not the government, to investigate this matter and take further action if necessary. Of course, the BBC is operationally and editorially independent of government, rightly so. The Director-General has commendably committed to sorting this issue out by 2020, and we will hold him to that. I understand their report on-air presenter salaries will be published in the next few weeks, but we expect the BBC to observe pay restraint and deliver value for money for licence fee payers. We will watch closely. The BBC must act, because the brilliant women working at all levels of the BBC deserve better.
Hannah Bardell.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. May I congratulate the right honourable gentleman on his new role as Secretary of State, and I'm glad to have him on his feet so soon after his appointment. The resignation of the BBC's China editor Carrie Gracie over the gender pay gap at the BBC has shocked and saddened us all. I welcome what he has said. He may be interested to know I got a rather unfortunate comment and statement from the BBC earlier, which said on-air colleagues who have been seen to campaign on the issue of BBC equal pay have to question whether or not they would be regarded as impartial by audiences when covering their story. Does the Secretary of State agree with me that instead of carping the BBC as a publicly funded organisation that doesn't pay equally should be getting its own house in order rather than attacking its own people? And I pay tribute to Carrie Gracie. She will be a huge loss, and she has shown great bravery and determination over this issue. Her letter makes for staggering and shocking reading. Salary discussions at the BBC were forced to make 6 months ago. Salary disclosures, at the BBC, forced to make 6 months ago, revealed not only unacceptably high pay for top presenters and managers, but an indefensible pay gap between men and women doing equal work. In the past 4 years, she said, the BBC has had 4 international editors, 2 men and 2 women. The Equality Act 2010 states that men and women doing equal work must receive equal pay. But last July, I learned that in the previous financial year, the men earned at least 50% more than the 2 women. Mr Speaker, how many talented women need to resign and be lost before the BBC and other media organisations will take action? I know he said he will challenge them, but what tangible action are we going to see from him, his government and the BBC? It is 100 years this year since women got the vote. We've come a long way, but why does it feel like so many in the establishment are stuck in the past?
Well, Mr Speaker, I share her outrage at what we've discovered, and I would underline that we've only discovered it because of the transparency measures that were brought in by this House in the Royal Charter process and led by my predecessors. She asked specifically about the editorial guidelines. Now, they are a matter for the BBC. It is understandable that they might say that somebody with a strong view should separate that view from the impartial delivery of news, but I would ask whether they observe that in every case, as well as cases just about the BBC.
Damien Collins.